Hello and welcome everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started on our webinar here today. Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Marco. I am one of the certified consultants here at Engage Squared. I am also one of our AI champions here. And I have joining me today Mark, who is going to be our main presenter for today. He's one of the principal M365 consultants here at Engage Squared. So we are super excited to be here to have a chat with you today about what generative AI can do and how it can transform your business practices. A bit about us, we are Engage Squared. We're experts in technology solutions designed with people in mind. So we operate mostly within the APAC region, and our focus is on delivering tailored solutions that add value for our clients. So we empower teams and individuals to enhance organizational culture, increase productivity, and embrace modern work practices. As your Copilot specialists, we lead the way in guiding you towards a successful integration in Copilot in your workplace. And we have been recognized as Microsoft Partner of the Year for both 2021 and 2022. And we think these accolades really speak to our dedication and expertise that we bring to every project. So before we jump into our webinar for today, just some general housekeeping items. So to streamline this webinar today, we are going to have the chat disabled. Instead, we're going to be operating using the Q&A option that you'll have at the top of your Teams there. So myself and Ailish will be in the background and we will be your facilitators for any Q&A that you'll have. We have quite a lot to get through today, so we'll try to get to all of your questions. And if we can't get to your questions, we will have these posted out after this session as well. Please feel free to use the react buttons in Teams to tell us anything that you like, anything that you find particularly interesting, and things like that. There will also be a Microsoft Forms little survey that we'd like you to complete as we kind of go through it, because we really like to interact with the people joining our webinars. So this is just number 2 on our series of webinars. We had the first one yesterday, which was around AI in the modern workplace. So that was recorded and it is going to be available on our website. So please do check it out. And if you haven't registered already for our session that we have tomorrow, which is on enabling M365 adoption, which we are finding is kind of the most important piece to Copilot, because it's such a different way of working and involves a culture change. So if you haven't registered for that, please do. There will be lots of value in that. Okay, so our agenda for today, we're going to just kind of look at setting up for success, looking at how to get your environments and structures set up so that Copilot can be most successful in your organization. And then we're going to touch on getting going, what the steps that we need to take to actually get some traction on getting Copilot implemented, and then reducing some of the AI threats that we find in the landscape. And then finally, we'll look at plugins and extensibility. So this is where we'll kind of look at getting Copilot set up specifically for your organization and your use cases. So I'm going to chuck in a little quick forms for you here to fill out. It's just a really quick survey to understand what some of your concerns that you may have with AI maybe. So you'll see that ad has just been posted in there. If you can go through and just fill that out for us, that would be really great. We'll see your results here live. While we wait for you to go through and populate that, I'll give you a random AI-related fact. I like to always give these while people are typing away in the background. You may or may not have heard of self-driving tractors. You probably have heard of self-driving cars, but there's also now self-driving tractors in agriculture, which are kind of AI-powered and autonomous tractors that are being developed to plow fields, plant seeds, and even apply pesticides without human intervention. Kind of like having a farmer's helper that never gets tired or complains about the weather. So AI is everywhere, and it's really awesome to see. All right, so we're starting to see some responses come through here. We're seeing that overwhelmingly, or not overwhelmingly, but a majority of you are concerned mostly with the data protection, so making sure that your organization's data is protected and kept secure when using AI tools. This is a really big thing in this space at the moment, and we know that with some of the tools that are out there, you're actually exposing some of your data if you're putting information on it. So that's something that we'll touch upon today as well. So we're also seeing some concerns around security and some concerns around privacy. So really interesting to see. Carry on to complete this in the background. We will kind of come back to it a little bit later on. But for now, yeah, I will now pass us on to our main presenter for today, who is going to be Mark. So Mark, take it away.
Thank you, Marco. Just clicking onto the next screen here. But it's a pleasure to be part of Tech Week, and I look forward to taking you all through how your organization can get ready to embrace Microsoft 365 Copilot. So we begin with setting up for success and some of the actions you can take to go from zero to hero with your Copilot initiatives. So there is no question that AI has swept in at a rather rapid pace, and it's impacting many aspects of our life. Its impacts will continue to become apparent in the coming years. This includes tasks that AI will be able to take on and replace humans with. And we have already seen some of these changes and disruptions directly impact industries such as film and entertainment. So that begs the question, what about Copilot AI? How is it going to impact the lives of people who leverage services such as Microsoft 365 and the suite of enterprise apps? Let's look at our first misconception. Copilot will take away our jobs. Well, not necessarily. No, the truth is Copilot will make you better at doing your job. That's the ethos of Microsoft with Copilot. It's all about boosting productivity and efficiency at what you do. Copilot helps you take notes for meetings and even list out the actions for a meeting workshop you attended. It can organize them into tasks, help you create presentations, pages, and even apps. This is not to say that AI in general will not disrupt the employee workplace, but that is not the intention of Copilot. It's all about helping you and your organization be better at what you do. What about our second point? Copilot AI accesses and shares my sensitive data. Well, not really. Microsoft are very serious when it comes to security, privacy, and data protection. And they have shown that Copilot leverages the same data and security protection methods as all other services within M365. Copilot inherits security, privacy, and compliance policies and processes, such as multi-factor authentication and compliance boundaries. And it doesn't natively access data outside of your M365 ecosystem. There are multiple forms of protection, safeguard your organizational data. Server-side technologies encrypt organizational content at rest and in transit for robust security. It's architected to protect your data at both the tenant and the environment level. Microsoft know that data leakage is a concern. So this does not mean responsible use is, this does mean rather that responsible use is important. Because of course you may want to access sensitive information, and if you use Copilot on that information, say to generate a Word document or chart, and then you choose to share that information, you need to make sure you are aware of the contents and review what is being shared. That is something that you should already be doing. So if we look at the third point, Microsoft will use my data to train the LLM. Well, actually, no, it won't. Similar to the second question, but it's still worth understanding. Like all the other services within M365, Microsoft are committed to keeping your data safe and secure and will not use your data. Any prompts, responses, and data accessed through the Microsoft Graph are not used to train the foundation LLMs models, including those used by Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 is compliant with existing privacy, security, and compliance commitments to Microsoft 365 customers, including GDPR and even the European Union data boundary. So I think let's get a better understanding on how Copilot is laid on top of your existing M365 architecture. Copilot is a sophisticated processing and orchestration engine that provides AI-powered productivity capabilities. Copilot reuses and introduces several components to help users make use of content and data they already have access to, and it does this by coordinating the following components: large language models, content in the Microsoft Graph, such as emails, chats, and documents that you have permission to access. Sitting on top of the Microsoft Graph, a new feature called the Semantic Index. The Microsoft 365 apps that you use every day, such as Teams, Word, and PowerPoint. Let's take a quick look at some of these components. Large language models work with the information provided to prompts using Microsoft 365 Copilot orchestration and the information you have access to via Microsoft Search. The LLMs are the driving force enabling a range of functionalities that redefine user interaction with technology. Hosted on Microsoft's Azure OpenAI service, these LLMs allow Copilot to process and respond to user inputs in a way that mimics human interaction. And for Copilot, the LLMs enable the enhancing of productivity for users. And with each new conversation, chat history is wiped clean and your interactions do not train the large language model. Okay, so let's quickly move on to the Microsoft Graph. This old friend has been around for a while now in Microsoft 365. The MS Graph is a major component that allows Copilot to find its information. Think of the Microsoft Graph as effectively the gateway and the gateway intelligence in Microsoft 365. It provides a unified programmability model that is used to access the tremendous amount of data in Microsoft 365, Windows, Enterprise Mobility, and Security. Like all other services in M365, it will only access data that you already have access to. And you have already been leveraging the Microsoft Graph anyway in your apps and services within your M365 tenant. For example, when you use Microsoft Search, when you search in Teams, when you leverage SharePoint, it all uses the Microsoft Graph. Or perhaps you've leveraged the graph in your own APIs for apps that you have built. And then, as mentioned, on top of the Microsoft Graph, Copilot improves the relevancy and scopes with prompts via this new feature called the Semantic Index. The Semantic Index is a new feature of Microsoft 365 Search that uses the graph to better interact with your personal and organizational data. It is a separate index on or map of your user and company data, identifying relationships and connections. It works with Copilot and the Microsoft Graph to create a sophisticated map of all data and content in your organization to enable Copilot to deliver personalized, relevant, actionable responses. The Semantic Index provides for fast and accurate similarity search and retrieval of data based on their vector distance or similarity. This means that instead of using traditional methods for querying based on exact matches or criteria, the Semantic Index can find the most similar or relevant data based on semantic or contextual meaning. A quick example here is if you were searching for something relating to breakfast. The Semantic Index would also interrelate things like muffins, toast, coffee into search that is performed with the MS Graph. It interprets your prompts and queries to produce contextually relevant responses that help you be more productive. So quite a cool feature on top of search. So then putting this all together, the process for Copilot prompt or query is as follows. A prompt is issued by the user through an app such as Teams, Word, Outlook. Copilot references the graph and the semantic index to perform grounding to the prompt or query. And by grounding, we basically mean adding additional content or context to the query that you have asked Copilot via the LLMS trained knowledge base. Referencing the LLM to produce the best response for the user. Then it returns this optimized response to the app using only the data the user has access to. Your customer's data stays within the Microsoft 365 service boundary. Your prompts, responses, and data in the graph are not used to train the foundation LMS that Copilot leverages. Your data is secured based on existing security, compliance, and privacy policies already deployed by your organization. So let's just quickly revisit some key points. Copilot is designed to respect user-specific permissions to any content or information it retrieves and only generates responses based on information the user explicitly has permission to access. Copilot uses encryption to protect the data in transit and at rest. Copilot also complies with the Microsoft Online Services terms and the Microsoft Privacy Statement, as well as the applicable laws and regulations in the regions where Copilot is available. Copilot does not store any user-generated content or data permanently. Copilot only caches the data temporarily for the duration of the session to provide a better user experience. The cached data is deleted after the session ends or after a certain period of inactivity. So I guess a lesson from all this is that it's important to ensure your technical teams understand Copilot, understand the architecture, and that they are familiar with the wide range of Copilot collateral readily available from Microsoft. And there is a lot. As your team will be able to help guide you on making the right decisions that underpin your Copilot deployment. Furthermore, and I think it's important to understand what is coming next with Copilot 2, being aware of future Copilot's capabilities. Just take a look at the raft of updates coming through in the M365 roadmap. Look at all those coming out in July. Many of these may directly help and support your key scenarios. So when looking at setting your organization up for success, here are 3 factors to ensure you are going to head in the right direction. Have your sponsors on board with an AI council established. So ensure you have appropriate executive Copilot sponsors established and you're ready within your organization and you have established some form of an AI council to support AI decisions. An AI council in your organization is the driving force behind leveraging AI's potential while maintaining ethical standards and aligning AI initiatives with broader business objectives. It should promote the responsible and effective use of AI, thus minimizing, or rather maximizing its benefits and minimizing potential risks. Thinking about your first initial goals and how AI will impact your strategy will give you a starting point for who you'll put on your council. Depending on your organization type and size, you should keep a core working group to a small number of people, and this group is then supported by an extended network. Your core group could include or should include IT, leadership, business subject matter experts, legal, risk management, of course, human resources, and of course others such as creators, designers, perhaps even some AI evangelists. Then we can look at your highest value scenarios. What are you looking for Copilot to help your business with? What are these scenarios? What metrics do you have that you can measure these scenarios against? Start thinking now from that productivity collaborative lens that M365 provides to help you determine this. And then a roadmap to secure your data. And in fact, this is something that should already be a priority in your business and is what we will be digging into more in this webinar. Securing your data goes beyond achieving zero trust within your environment, and that's important. It is about ensuring that your information architecture and information management is in a good state. This has been a challenge for many organizations even before AI became a part of the equation. Start a plan for getting this corrected now. With these essential items in place, you can begin the process for preparing your organization for Copilot. Just like with any project or initiative, it is very important to consider 2 aspects of the journey. User enablement, a critical piece to any technology rollout you will do. Copilot is more than just flicking a switch. It will have deep impacts within the people of your organization. In our 3rd webinar, we will talk about the best ways to deal with this through a thorough adoption and change management strategy. And of course, technical readiness, feeding from your roadmap towards securing your data. Ensuring that technically your organization is ready from a variety of areas, including Microsoft app usage, environment optimization, security, compliance, architecture, and information management. We're going to take a deeper look into technical readiness. We can see that the technical readiness stream transcends the whole journey. Begin with activities that prepare your organization to be technically competent for Copilot enablement. This doesn't mean you have to have everything ticked off in your roadmap, but your organization does need to be in a state that has reduced risk for either a Copilot pilot or Copilot organizational-wide rollout. We then have activities for enabling items and setting up your environment for Copilot, assigning and activating licenses, ensuring Microsoft app usage, and that appropriate people have access to the Copilot usage reports. As Copilot is being used, we need to validate that the measures applied are having an impact. Leveraging the Copilot dashboard to understand usage, adoption, and retention. Of course, the user enablement stream will be of great importance here, so technically supporting what they are doing. This phase could also involve further risk reduction and reviewing the architecture and security landscape in light of Copilot usage and experiences. And then we need to think beyond the M365 ecosystem that Copilot natively supports and what it means to support other scenarios and unique experiences that Copilot can provide, such as integrations with other systems or targeted scenarios leveraging Copilot Studio. Reviewing the data security risks and addressing them for this expansion will need to be planned. Okay, great. With those foundational blocks in place, we can begin to look at the steps involved to get going with Copilot. And essentially, there are three core prerequisites for enabling Copilot in your organization. Firstly, it's important that you have deployed and that your organization is already using Microsoft's enterprise apps. Copilot enriches these experiences and is the basis for improving your productivity in Microsoft 365. Different folk in your organization will leverage a specific combination of tools for their ways of working, and the scenarios you have earlier formalized will play their part with the usage of these tools. Then you need to ensure that M365 updates are coming in either via the current channel or the monthly enterprise channel. This is an administrative setting that your M365 administrator will need to validate and change if necessary. Finally, be sure to have the appropriate licensing in place. This covers enterprise and Office 365 plans, business plans, education plans, and of course, you'll need the Microsoft 365 Copilot license add-on. It is important to understand that your Microsoft 365 architecture and usage and ensure that your current state is fit for purpose for a successful Copilot deployment. Microsoft provides the optimization assessment to help you assess your current state and uncover opportunities to optimize your Microsoft 365 environment for Copilot. It does this by uncovering areas like licensing, identity, collaboration tools, data security and data sovereignty requirements, and gives you a score on how well you are leveraging M365 and its protections. The Copilot for Microsoft 365 Optimization Assessment will help you see how far along your organization is in adopting AI and suggest the modern digital tools you will need to get there. You can see here, it's a simple form, filling in the details and being able to run through the little questionnaire. It takes about 30 minutes for someone to do that. Once you complete the short questionnaire, you are presented with a score and suggestions on how to improve your Microsoft 365 posture. You'll see different pathways presented, such as how to reach a core level of competency for Copilot and what it would take to reach best in class. These suggestions could include taking advantage of configurations and features already available within your existing licensing, or suggestions to uplift to a higher level of protection and features within the next tier of licensing, such as moving from E3 to E5. As per the Microsoft Optimization Assessment, there are 3 tiers of Copilot technical readiness that Microsoft will recommend based on your answers. It's good to have an understanding on these tiers as you can litmus test that against your current setup. Firstly, you have baseline, and that would simply be for those people with an Office 365 license and leveraging only a subset on what M365 provides. A key requirement is to have multi-factor authentication and audit logging enabled to help protect your data. Then moving up to the enterprise level, we start to see the need for leveraging both Purview and SharePoint advanced management features within M365 to protect your data via access controls and establish sound information management. And for best in class, we can take advantage of all the features prior, plus add in the highest level of security controls that Microsoft provides to protect your data and to automate many of the information management and protection features to have you running enterprise grade for Copilot. It must be said that you should be taking action on these areas regardless of using AI and Copilot. And here is a detailed view of the core deployment path with a split of features between Microsoft SharePoint features that include the paid add-on of advanced management gives you, more on that a little later, and what can be achieved with E3 version of Purview. And so we take a quick look at some of these. We've got for ourselves here, Microsoft SharePoint evaluate sharing controls that govern who can share and how broadly. And what are some of those core deployment activities? Well, we can ask site owners to manually review permissions. Same thing with OneDrive. You potentially could write scripts to do this. You can make sure that you've got default sharing links set correctly. If you've got advanced management, you can look at implementing an inactive site policy. You can run data access governance reports. So there's a lot of areas there within Microsoft SharePoint and using SharePoint Advanced Management to get you to the core path. And then, of course, Microsoft Purview. Using those features, particularly data protection features, data classification features, to help secure your data, making sure it's in the right hands and being used correctly while adhering to potentially your regulatory requirements for how you manage your data. Best in class introduces better reporting and automation of access control and data management by harnessing E5 security features alongside SharePoint Advanced Management. And we can see a few here. Being able to automate things like retention policies, labels, creating communication compliance policies, using the data access governance reports on a periodic basis with restrictive access controls being applied, looking at the change history report, automatically applying sensitivity labels, retention, looking at adaptive scopes. There's a lot that you can get using, if you're on E5, the methods that you have already and features you already have available to you. Okay, so based on what that is, your organization ready to move forwards with an initial Copilot pilot or embrace an organizational rollout? Here we can see that even if you're not quite ready technically, say there is some risk based on your current information management state and you don't want certain content being uncovered, or people in your organization may uncover information that they may already have access to, but really shouldn't, there is a pathway for you to still move on with Copilot. Microsoft have recently provided an option for you that restricts Copilot and search, that paves the course for you to enable Copilot safely with restrictions. We will take a look at this option in the next slide. The advantage of whatever course you take is that you can still work behind the scenes to alleviate any concerns and optimize your M365 landscape while you begin to leverage Copilot. So really, Microsoft wants to make sure there's nothing there to stop you from turning Copilot on and starting to leverage its features. And as we can see on this roadmap, as you can at step 4, you can optimize further as needed as you reach either the core best-in-class state or something similar. And then once you've done that, during your Copilot journey, you can turn off restrictive search. So restrictive search, it's a temporary solution to give you time to review and audit site permissions while implementing robust data security solutions from Microsoft Purview. It's designed for organizations that are very concerned about the oversharing of their content. When enabled, Copilot experiences and organization-wide search are limited to a select set of SharePoint sites. Let's have a look at the impact there. We can restrict SharePoint search up to 100 sites, but beyond that, it also allows users OneDrive for Business chats that they are a part of, emails they send and receive, calendars they already have access. It doesn't stop that. Files they've shared and accessed by users. It doesn't stop that. And content from users frequently visited sites. So the 100 sites is in addition to all of that. Does restricted SharePoint search require an additional license? No. It's available to all tenants with Copilot, with Microsoft subscriptions from April onwards. Should be there now. Restricted SharePoint search is off by default. You can enable it by running PowerShell scripts that require global tenant and SharePoint permissions. Does enabling restricted search change permissions? It does not. The feature does not change permissions for a user, but instead it's tend to help minimize the risk of overexposure of overshared content by reducing what they discover and can search in Copilot. It stops Copilot from accessing everything else. How does restricted SharePoint search affect my search results? If restricted is enabled, your experience will be impacted. Search results and Copilot search results will be limited. Users will be able to discover just the content from all those areas listed earlier. Copilot will have less information available to reference, which may impact its ability to provide accurate and comprehensive responses. Users within the organization will see the following banner. They'll have, it will let people know that their search experience is limited. And will users will be unable to access the information with Copilot if restricted? No. If enterprise search or restricted SharePoint search is on, either way, you will be able to interact with the information you own already in OneDrive, the chats you're part of, emails you send and receive. So it won't impact those types of activities. Mainly your search activities will be impacted. I was thinking, well, what about an alternative approach? Well, maybe it's not about just limiting it to 100 sites. Maybe there are core sites that you are aware of that you need to remove, and you can already do that. That is a function that organizations already do, and you simply go into the site settings and disable it from being shown in the search results. This also prevents Copilot from accessing that information, as it relies on going through the Microsoft graph, and relies on SharePoint search to access the information for its prompts and for its queries. So this is another option without having to completely alter your search experience. Okay, so you're all good to go, and your organization is ready to turn Copilot on. Let's recap what is required and the steps. Firstly, deploy the required M365 apps. If you aren't using some of these apps, ensure you are enabling them. Especially, they must coincide with the scenarios that you have earlier come up with. And the appropriate adoption and change management is completed for introducing these productivity apps into your organization. If we look at the Copilot configure channel, ensure that you have the correct settings in place. It's only one of those two options, current channel or monthly enterprise channel. Ensure that is being set so that Copilot can be enabled in your organization. Thirdly, assigning licensing. So based on the results of your assessment, the appropriate licenses need to be assigned. That could be for your pilot, that could be for an organizational rollout. And you can use the setup guide to help you. There's a wizard to enable you to roll this out, and it'll guide you through all those steps to ensure that Copilot can be enabled in your organization. Wonderful. So getting back into some of the details on how we can further secure our environment, it's good to get an idea on the threat landscape in AI in general. So let's dig a bit deeper into the current threat and then look at protections you can arm your organization with to optimize your M365 environment. So generative AI does face some challenges. We see for organizations, there's some concerns raised. The rise of shadow AI. 58% of organizations have concerns around the lack of visibility into the unsanctioned use of generative AI. With the lack of control to protect data shared in AI, 43% of organizations said the lack of controls to detect and mitigate risk is a top concern. And then increased regulatory pressure. We're aware that at least one global company will see its AI deployment banned by a regulator for non-compliance with data protection or AI governance legislation. So there's definitely some things to think about and prepare for. So let's take a quick look at your responses. List any other concerns we may have. Let's have a look at the word cloud, actually. Waiting for the responses. We've got 14 that's been submitted. Take a little while. What we might do. There we go. I'll share this other screen. So we had 25% concerns with privacy, 35% security, and 38% issues with data protection, which are all very valid concerns. Come back to the other list. And then we have education, absolutely. That is definitely a concern with AI, making sure businesses and understand the different aspects of generative AI in their business. Data sovereignty, that's a really good one. And obviously something, with regards to Microsoft having the data centers now in New Zealand. So hopefully that can address some concerns. Licensing limitations. So yeah, that's an interesting one too. Thinking about, well, what about other licenses, and thinking about aspects such as difference between Teams Premium, but Teams Premium has some AI functionality versus Copilot. Hallucinations. So I'm not too sure about that one, but we'll have to get back to you on that particular one. All right. So we need to address these risks. We've got issues with data overexposure. What can happen there? Data used by AI could be sensitive, including PII and PHI, and could violate patients' privacy rights. So there's a loss of customer trust. An issue with data loss. Data produced by AI may be vulnerable to unauthorized access as a disclosure by malicious actors. Well, and that's already an issue now, isn't it? Even before AI. And that can be a concern from a diminished competitive edge if that information gets to your competitors, for example. Data non-compliance. Data used and produced by AI may not comply with relevant regulations and AI ethics principles. And there could be heavy penalties as a result of that. And so we can see here with or without AI, threats to get your data are on the rise. Cybersecurity is ever so important. And you could just see here one scenario where there was a weakness in an endpoint, someone was able to get in and then start accessing other areas of their environment. Looking at the different targeting risks and what's considered higher, medium, or low, we've got there no advanced multi-factor authentication. That's a key thing to address. Lack of EDR, lack of detection, no advanced password protection enabled. So these are all things that can have increase of risk and actually have impacts to your business. So what exactly needs to be protected? Well, your whole ecosystem, obviously. So in Azure, that consists of a lot of areas. But if we want to dig a bit deeper just into Microsoft 365, we need to concern ourselves with the plugins extensibility, the different copilots, and the apps that are within Microsoft 365. So Azure and AI, that would also include things like the Power Platform, even though we are only focusing on many aspects of the apps within Microsoft 365. Devices and users need to be protected. The apps on those devices need to be protected. Access into the areas such as Microsoft Graph through access control need to be protected. Microsoft already has a layer of protection on there, but it's about your information management and how you are protecting the data within your organization. And obviously, it's not just the data that's a concern. The good news is you can easily protect against 99% of these attacks. As mentioned earlier, enabling multi-factor authentication. This protects against compromised user passwords, applies zero trust principles, This is the cornerstone of any resilience plan. It's to limit the impact of an attack on an organization. Ensure users' devices are in a good state. Use least privilege access. And assume a breach. Assume system defenses have been breached and may be compromised. This could mean constantly monitoring and catching such a breach. Use extended detection and response atomware. Implement software to detect and automatically block attacks. Keep your systems up to date. M365, it's always up to date. But what about your other systems? What about those other entry points to your data? And of course, protect your data. And this is a really important one, and one that shines with Microsoft 365. You need to know your important data. Where is it located? What are the right are the right defenses implemented? It's crucial to implementing the appropriate protection. And how do you do that? We do that through a solid information management strategy. These 4 key questions cover essential aspects of what it means to have an information management with a solid foundation. This segmented approach is found on having a reasonable answer to each of these questions. Where, what, governance, who? It's difficult to manage the life cycle of your data without knowing where it is, because all policies must be applied to a location like a site, group, or mailbox. If we don't know what the data is, then it can't be easily labeled. And when we think of governance, for the data that we do understand, does it have the right combination of management policies in place? And who? Have we got the right controls in place to manage the access and sharing of data? And do we know who should have access? Get this right, and you'll have a manageable information management strategy in place. And similar to the core, best in class, map that towards the licensing that you have. E3, if you got that, get started with sensitivity labels, create data loss prevention policies, create retention policies using Context Explorer. If you've got E5 or thinking of going to E5, extend your policies to more data and begin using automation with data protection policies. Sensitivity labeling expands to protect more content. Look to use a lot of the SharePoint Advanced Management functionality if you have that, or replicate that particular behavior. And that's why it's good to sort of understand this sort of new kid on the block, which would be SharePoint Premium or SharePoint Advanced Management, just a little bit. We've got Microsoft Purview that a lot of you are probably already familiar with, and its capabilities and data classification protection. But then we've got this new SharePoint Premium solution for site management and content management capabilities to help enable users to quickly find relevant information and create value and streamline your business process in SharePoint. And you sort of get an idea of how they work together here. We've got Purview and SharePoint Advanced Management working together, keeping your data safe, being able to apply lifecycle policies with ease together. So we know that Microsoft Copilot, data protection is critical. So in your this is an example of how you can protect your data and what process or steps you could go with. You could make sure you start with discovering and identifying your business data, develop a classification protection schema. That could be whether it's sensitivity, whether it's adaptive scopes, whatever that is, what policies you need to apply, test and pilot that on a subset of data in your Microsoft 365 system, and then deploy that schema across Microsoft 365. And you can extend it to your other apps and continue to discover and protect data in other repositories based on your priorities. And something that's very important, and we'll just touch on a little bit as I know time is of the essence as we move forwards, but a huge concern and one that Microsoft provide much guidance on is oversharing remediation. And it's something that's been a concern for some time, knowing who has access, why they have access, how they have access, should they have access. So yes, organizations operate at various levels of maturity in governing SharePoint data. And this guide is essentially some of the steps, including alternative scenarios on how you can manage oversharing and getting ready for Copilot. Firstly, we must look at review the site level sharing controls. Educate your site admins on site level controls that they can use to restrict members. As you can see here, we can limit it to so only site owners can share files, folders, and site. You can do things like this, where you can set a particular site to not show that everyone except external users. So people can't actually choose to share a site with everyone. That could be because the site is confidential and should only be shared with a subset of users. So you can help and guide people to make the right decisions. It's important to look at the various different layers and levels within a SharePoint site, team site, what have you, and the settings available on how you can limit the sharing capabilities within those sites. As you can see here, the different ways that you can specify the limiting options with sharing with specific people. You can put approvals in so that site owners have to approve a sharing request. Think about your OneDrive sharing. How are people doing that in your organization? How you control guest sharing, your overall organization sharing links. Should it always just be view rather than edit and view when you share the link? How you create sites, groups, and teams. Should you have a provisioning system in place instead of just letting people create these sites, create these structures? And then with that provisioning in place, you can also apply some of these things automatically rather than having to go one by one. And how people are sharing with their emails. Admins can encrypt files by using sensitivity labels to prevent them being shared with unauthorized people. And looking at how blocking potentially the ability to download for certain sites. That might be something that you need to look into. Another key step is identifying inactive sites and restricting their access. Part of understanding inactive sites can also mean getting rid of these sites so the data is not there because it shouldn't be there, and thinking about removing those sites. With SharePoint Advanced Management, you can easily identify this through the inactive site policies. And at the output of that is a report that lets you know of the types of sites that are sitting there that aren't being used. And you can assess those and potentially remove those, reduce your risk. Of course, if you have options to do this already without SharePoint Advanced Management, you can create your own reports to do these types of things and flag the sites. But SharePoint Advanced Management gives the power of that out of the box to your admins to sort these things out. So once you've identified inactive sites, you've restricted those, another area is potentially overshared content. This is where using the data access governance reports can assist. You can have a report on sharing links and sensitivity applied that have been applied to files. The sharing links report lets you look at sites that have the anyone links, people in the organization links, specific people. It gives information about this. You can have reports that bring up the sensitivity labels on these on these files. And you can have a look and you can prioritize sites that you need to look into and address these issues. You can do things like look at the usage of everyone except external users in the last 28 days. Usage of broad org-wide people in your organization sharing links in the last 28 days. So you can filter as needed and look at addressing these things in a priority list of actions. And alternatively, if you're a bit of a gun with PowerShell, you can write some of these things up yourself, as many of you probably already are doing. But it's great to know that SharePoint Advanced Management can provide this for your admins out of the box. And then obviously you need to remediate. You have the data, you understand what's happening. So with SharePoint Advanced Management, not only provides you with the reports you need, but allows you to take actions. For example, this new functionality called restricted access control, which allows you to overlay on sites that are flagged, say, as urgent, needing to be actioned. You can limit the permissions of those sites to a group of users. It doesn't edit the permissions of the other sites, but it supersedes them. And you can have this policy in place while you address the security concerns, and then you can remove the policy. And this is exactly what I was talking about, restricting the site access via group membership. You can create custom change history reports to get an idea on the types of changes made in the last 180 days. And then you get visibility on the types of things that are happening on the site at a granular level for information that may be important to you. For cases where SharePoint admin needs to consult with site owners, you can reach out to the owners of these sites via the data access governance reports. And there'll be a new advanced management feature called Site Access Review that a SharePoint admin can initiate a data access governance report. And the site owners will have a new review UI feature that once the admin flags, they can then go in and start addressing the issues. So you can put the onus off the admin to the owners of the sites that are affected. But of course, a lot of these things you can look at doing yourself. If you know how to use Power Automate, runbooks, you can write a lot of these functionality. You can make certain decisions, like a global decision to not allow everyone accept external access, which I've seen some organizations do. And you could possibly also do a risk analysis on priority list of sites by creating some metrics that you can then address your concerns by, such as complex lists, sites with complex lists. Maybe these are higher up in your priority list of sites to look into. So we come back to this journey, that this sort of flow, that wherever you sit, you can continue to address your data and security concerns, but still ensure that you can still leverage Copilot in your organization, no matter where you are on that journey. Great. So taking a different step now and looking at extending. So perhaps you've rolled out Copilot in your organization and you're looking to bring in perhaps Copilot functionality to some of those line of business applications you have. How would you do that? How can that be done? And of course, Microsoft has an answer to that, and that's through plugins and extensibility that's available in Copilot. When we think about generative AI today, we often envision individual employees having a very smart personal assistant. We think about people quickly summarizing long emails or drafting high quality emails, documents, and presentations. And although these efficiency gains at this level are valuable, they represent only a fraction of the potential. Here's where Copilot extensibility truly shines, feeding Copilot with business data. Imagine leveraging your CRM, ERP, file systems, knowledge bases, and embed AI. Suddenly we leap from individual user efficiency increments to organization-wide efficiency. These leaps become visible, impacting productivity, decision-making, and overall success. So what is Copilot extensibility? It's the enhancement of Copilot's power to interact securely with platforms outside of the Microsoft 365 cloud. The graph here illustrates Copilot extensibility. On the y-axis, we have skills, and on the x-axis, we have knowledge. The smaller pink rectangle represents the combination of skills and knowledge that Copilot possesses out of the box. Extending Copilot means adding more skills or knowledge for Copilot to use in resolving prompts. Skills are abilities like summarizing long email threads in Outlook, creating a presentation in PowerPoint, or drafting content in Word. For example, if you have a ticketing system outside of M365, connecting this platform using a plugin would enable users to update or create tickets or find specific ticket information through Copilot. If we look at knowledge and graph connectors, we can extend Copilot's knowledge using graph connectors. Copilot for M365 out of the box can leverage information stored in OneDrive, SharePoint Online, information you as a user have access to. We can extend the knowledge of Copilot to leverage key information that lives in other platforms. Consider an external platform where you store all your HR-related policies. Since this platform is outside of M365, interacting with Copilot might not retrieve information aligning with those policies. However, by using a graph connector, we can index the information stored on this HR platform into the graph. And once indexed, Copilot will be able to tap into these policies, turning Copilot into an authoritative source for answering HR questions. So this slide presents an overview of your options for extensibility, including some of the examples we have discussed. So we have no-code solutions, connectors, and plugins. On one side of the extensibility spectrum, we find the no-code. These are ready-made connectors and plugins. They're available out of the box. Connectors seamlessly integrate with Copilot and external platforms. Plugins enhance the Copilot's capabilities and even create custom ones if needed. If we quickly move along the spectrum, low-code route. We have Copilot Studio, and Copilot Studio allows you to extend Copilot's power. It's a playground for customization where you can shape Copilot to fit your unique needs. And then deeper dive, we have the Azure AI Studio for fine tuning, and these for deeper customizations. So as you explore this spectrum, remember Copilot journey isn't about efficiency, it's about your organizational excellence. Choose your pathways and let Copilot empower you. So here's just very quickly, a value of plugins. Plugins are essential for connecting Copilot to your third-party applications. It's particularly interested for retrieving real-time business data. Consider a plugin as an API used to fetch information. Plugins are the optimal choice for real-time data. They can also enhance the user experience through adaptive cards, allowing the reuse of existing investments. Whereas graph connectors provide a connection to the enterprise knowledge that resides in a third-party data source, whether on-premises or in the cloud. By indexing this information, the grounding process of Copilot is enhanced as it seeks information to fulfill your prompt from these other sources. Copilot will search not only OneDrive and SharePoint, but also the information that's within these other sources. Good thing is admins obviously will have control and be able to manage these plugins for Copilot as apps in the integrated apps section of Microsoft 365. Admins can view all the apps that have Copilot support from the list of available deployed or blocked apps on the integrated apps page by using the filter option. And of course, we have the Copilot Studio, which is the low-code approach. Early on, AI was restricted to the very specialized vendors and data scientists, and we saw it expand to in-house professional developers. A little later came the introduction of tools like virtual agents, and more recently, Microsoft Copilot Studio. In here, you have a variety of conversational tools at your fingertips. Using these tools, along with generative AI, you can build your own Copilot, customize Microsoft first-party Copilots, and manage these experiences. Inside Copilot Studio, you get a few studios or workspaces to help extend Copilot. There are 3 studios, 2 of which you are already familiar with, such as Automation Studio, which is Power Automate. It's been extended to leverage Copilot. And the second is Admin Studio, the Power Platform admin area, where you can manage deployment across environments through your Center of Excellence. The third studio, the Building Studio, is where you create and test deploy custom conversational copilots and extensions. And this studio consists of 4 workspaces. Building and managing your plugins. There's a space for you to leverage generative AI. There's a space to manage publishing of your Copilot. There are several channels available to deploy your custom Copilot. Some of these channels include Facebook, Slack, and Twilio. And last of all, there's a workspace that provides analytics and insights such as usage for your custom Copilot. As mentioned, using Copilot Studio, you can extend and customize first-party Microsoft Copilots with your own enterprise scenarios. These include Microsoft Copilot, Copilot for Service, Copilot for Sales, and many more. By extending these first-party Copilots, you can now better control the conversation with your custom automated workflows, bringing in your business data. Currently, options for extending Microsoft first-party Copilots come in the form of 2 types of plugins, conversational and AI. Inside Copilot Studio, makers will be able to see all available plugins and import them. Along with extending Microsoft's first-party Copilots, you can leverage the generative AI features of Copilot Studio to help you build your own custom Copilot. We have generative answers to help generate multi-turn answers from organizations' content in real time, generative actions to generate dialogue and take action by chaining plugins, and generative building to use AI to help build, design, and modify Copilot topics through natural language. And with generative answers, you can simply point to your knowledge sources, those you want your Copilot to understand, such as company websites, SharePoint sites, OneDrive files. Generative Actions leverages the built-in generative AI to dynamically chain plugins together. It will automatically slot fill further details to get the information needed for the task. And Generative Builder, using the Generative Builder functionality, you don't have to manually author topics. You can use AI assistants to build the topics. You simply give the topic a name and a description or purpose for the topic, and the AI assistant builds it for you. In summary, Copilot Studio exposes a full end-to-end lifecycle for your Microsoft first-party Copilot extensions. As a single pane of glass, you can build those experiences using the built-in generative AI, the customer pre-built plugins, and integrate with Azure AI services. Then after it is built, you can test that experience, manage its deployment, and monitor its usage, all from within the same web experience. And that concludes my presentation. I'll thank you so much for listening to me. I hope that's been of benefit to you. I'll pass it back to Marco to close us out.
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, and we hope you found some value out of this this webinar here today. Please do note that this is going to be recorded, so it is going to be disseminated after this. If you do have any questions outside of that, please do feel free to reach out to us, or if you would like us to give you a more in-depth briefing, or maybe one that is tailored specifically to your organization. And just a final reminder, please do register for our enabling Copilot workshop. That is tomorrow at 1 p.m. That's going to be a really beneficial webinar to come through to get some information about how to actually adopt Copilot successfully. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all there. You have a good rest of your day.